Okay, we are live once again. We're here every week, Thursday at 11:30 a.m. California time, in case you are tuning in for the replay, so you don't miss the next one. Make sure I sound good. Looks like everything's working fine. So we'll get started here. So we already have a couple questions. Well, Sergio says hi. Hi, Sergio. Yes, Sergio is here. Good. We also have A here. I don't know if A is here currently. I don't want to answer the questions unless I know you're here for sure. So let me know that you're still here, and I'll get to your questions. Or I could just answer them and point you back to the beginning. But I'll wait until you tell me you're here. Gabriel says hi. Hello, Gabriel. Welcome, welcome. So Sergio says, is it possible to use a glottal stop or a held stop T instead of a T in words like past or fast? Hello, Delia. Welcome, welcome. Hope everyone is good. The fully enunciated, right? We always, whenever we're talking about pronunciation, we have to talk about the full range because there's not one answer. It depends on if you're fully enunciating, if you're speaking normal, if you are speaking really fast, certain things might break. And when we have the ST ending, if you are super enunciating, right, or it could just come out this way, it's fine, it's okay, it's not a big deal. But usually, if we're not enunciating really clearly, we're just going to drop the T. It's not a held, it's not a glottal, it's not a weak T, it's just nothing. Okay. Now that does depend a bit on what's around it. Okay. So if I say he's really fast, fast, and I just drop that, technically I'm saying like fast, really fast. I'm not, now my tongue might sort of settle into that T at the very end there, and I guess you could say that's sort of like a little held T, but it doesn't have to. I'm basically just ending in that S sound. If I push out the whole word and I say it very clearly, he's very fast. He's very fast, right? And again, it could just come out that way. It's always possible, but it's not likely that we're going to push that T out unless we're enunciating to some degree. That being said, remember, it's also contextual. So if there's a vowel after it, for example, if I say, I don't know, his past is, I don't know, unclear, whatever. So we don't know his past, right? So his past is unclear. His past is. So we know that like when we say start, or let's just say star, that S has an influence on the T, which sort of dulls it and makes it sound very similar to a weak D. And if you have that ST ending and it connects over to a vowel, it's going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to become this sort of like really weak, kind of almost like a D type sound. Basically is a weak D. It's close enough that it doesn't really matter. So past is. Now, could you drop the T there? His past is unclear. His past is unclear. Yes, you could, especially if you're speaking really quickly. But when we have that vowel there, it's a little more likely that we're going to bring the T back. So it's dynamic. It varies. If the next sound is a consonant, it's very, very, very likely, it's almost guaranteed that we're going to drop the T completely. Now, to your question specifically, can you do a glottal or a held stop? Probably not. Because now remember the general default rule or thing that tends to happen, a T at the end of a word, as long as it doesn't connect to anything, a T at the end of a word would be like stop or held. But this is one of those exception cases where, because of the S, we actually tend to drop the T. And so if you try to stop the T, like his past is unclear. It's like you're intentionally stopping the flow. And it becomes an obstacle in the flow of speech. if that makes sense. I suppose technically a stop is always an obstacle in some way, but it feels really unnatural. It feels like you're intentionally trying to stop it for no reason, and it's just making it harder to speak. So no. Maybe you could do a held stop, like his past is, or like I say, he's fast. I'm trying to think of a consonant. Anyway, nothing's coming to my mind right now. But anyway, potentially you can use a held T. The next time is a consonant. I need to do this. Okay, past. This is it. We just put two words together. Past now. Okay, past now. Past now. Okay, I'm going to that N in this case. I can kind of hold that T for a little second, maybe get a little tiny bit of a glottal. Past now. Past now. It can happen. So it's dynamic. It depends on what's around it. Usually, no, you're not going to stop, or in any way, you're not going to stop the T in the ST ending. Usually. Okay. So we got that. And I see A is here. Okay. So thanks you for letting me know. Now, your first question, I'm not going to answer, only because I'm pretty sure that will get me not demonetized necessarily, but that will cancel out the monetization on this video, because that is a type of gun, and I'm not going to pronounce that several times on a live stream. So that one I will not answer. Sorry. Your second question, could you explain the California vowel shift? I can try. I'm not super familiar with it. I'm aware of it, but let's see here. California vowel shift, Wikipedia. Basically, so there are some California speakers, not all California speakers necessarily. I don't know exactly how many California speakers, where I can't share my screen with you guys, but if you go to this link, anybody who's curious, go to this link, that should paste since it's from me, and you scroll down a little bit. On the right side, you'll see a vowel chart, and it'll have the symbols with like a bunch of arrows and stuff. And it's sort of showing, like, I guess, where things sort of move to. So I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this would represent, for the most part, it would represent somebody who sounds like maybe more of like the surfer type or valley girl, or whatever, where I don't know if I can do that. Let's see. Like, hey, brah, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? See, I'm trying to make that O go forward instead of going. How's it go? How's it going? Dude. Ooh. Dude. That's so cool, dude. Yeah. So I imagine that's what this vowel shift represents, is that type of sound. Why it's happening, I don't know. But let's see. It says one dialect of English most reported in California's rural, meaning countryside, interior, inland from major coastal cities, has been popularly described as country, hillbilly, or twang variety. This California English variety is reminiscent of and presumably related to Southern and South Midland accents. So there's not necessarily just one California thing. There's like an inland one and a coastal one. And there's maybe some influence from people who immigrated from the Midwest, like during the Great Depression and stuff. I know that that's a thing. Like the pin-pen merger, if I remember right, that in Bakersfield, California, and around that area, people say pin and pen the same. They just use eh. I'm pretty sure, yeah. Can you pass me a pen? Yeah. Do you have a pen so I can write? This is all regional. It's not standard. You don't have to pay any attention to it. If you're curious about it, I mean, do research on it. I don't have all the answers about, all the varieties of English and everything. So, yeah. I would just encourage you to learn more on your own, but it's not something you have to pay attention to at all. Okay, so moving on from there. Steve, welcome, Steve. Am I supposed to efficiently learn a language just by watching something in this language? Supposed to, I don't think is the right word here. Am I able to efficiently learn a language? Supposed to would imply that like it's something that you have a duty to do, or like you have to do it. So like, do I have to efficiently learn a language just by watching? It's kind of a weird question that way, but can you by watching something? Well, not just watching something. The key to okay. I want to break this down simply without going on a rant. This applies especially to language learning more than other skills, but it applies to all skills. There's always the input and the output, right? We know this. There's the input version and the output version. And for language, of course, we have, two input-output pairs. We have speaking and listening that go together, reading and writing that go together. We're not talking about the reading and writing. It's a separate skill set. For the speaking and listening, which is, why the main reason why you're learning the language in the first place, the input is super, super, super important because your brain, our brains are already designed for language, right? Like it's something that very early on, there's, whatever it is in the brain, many theories about that, start acquiring the sound system and, start figuring out, okay, this is called that and that's called that. And you start learning words and you start saying those words and putting them together and all the grammar, blah, 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 blah. So our brain is designed for that. And just because you pass a certain age doesn't mean your brain is no longer designed for that. So the input in language learning is always primary. It doesn't matter. Even if you take a speak from day one approach, like say you want to learn Japanese tomorrow and you want to start speaking straight from day one, which you can do, you always need some amount of input that you would then immediately go and try to use, right? So it's always input first. So can you efficiently learn a language just by, say, watching things, maybe listening to things, like not using the language? And I think that the question is not, there's certain assumptions in the question, which is very natural. Most people would probably phrase the question that way. Because you're saying to learn a language, like the whole language, being able to understand and speak, I would assume, right? That's why you're learning a language. Ultimately, long-term, at the end of the day, I think yes, depending on if you do it like Matt versus Japan. I don't know his exact method, but I know he got a lot of input. Like he surrounded himself by Japanese pretty much 24/7. No subtitles, he's just like watching things, absorbing things, many different things like news and TV shows, anything that like native Japanese speakers would be exposed to in their daily lives in terms of media. He was just constantly doing that. He isolated himself for the most part, as far as I understand, from like his friends and family to like create this bubble and stuff. And it, again, I don't know all the details of his thing. I watched a couple things that, of him talking about how he learned Japanese. And it seemed like, I think he said when he wanted to start speaking, he already had so much input that it wasn't just like automatic, like he could just magically speak, but the language, like there were so many phrases in his head and chunks of language that he had been exposed to so much that it's just started kind of coming out when he needed it. And he had to sort of practice and smooth it out a bit, but it was kind of already there in his brain. He just had to activate it. Now that's a very, very intense, super high input approach over a very long period of time with not a lot of output. That can work. The question is, do you have the time for that? Do you have the ability to isolate yourself from speakers of your language for, say, a year? It doesn't matter if it's possible if it's not practical for your particular case. So personally, I think, and it depends on your exact goals and your preferences, but I think that it's never too early to speak. And you should, regardless of whatever path you choose or however you decide to try to learn a language, whatever techniques you use and whatever, starting with pronunciation, not starting with pronunciation, whatever it is, whatever you do, you should always be getting as much input as possible, particularly the spoken language. The written language, there can be benefits to that. Steve Kaufman talks a lot about the benefits of reading and listening together as forms of input. But I would very highly emphasize the spoken language, the listening part, if you're trying to develop your spoken and your understanding and speaking skills. The input must be emphasized in some way. So really the answer to the question, I guess, in simplest terms would be, again, it comes down to your goals, your preferences, not so much what's possible. So I guess it wouldn't be the most efficient way, no. But you should definitely try to get as much input as you can on a regular basis. The more, the better, right? So that's what I would say. It's just a general guideline. I hope that answers your question more or less. If you have any follow-ups to that, let me know. No, I'm already behind. Good job, guys. Andre, welcome. I don't know how to pronounce some L sounds. Okay, I asked American friends, and they said they say they're still touching the roof of the mouth, but my sound gets weird always, else, all right, little by little. Okay, so this is something that the one thing about pronunciation, so natives of a language, if they don't have any practice with paying attention to how their tongue moves in the language, most of the time, even if you ask them directly, they will either not be able to answer or they will not be able to answer correctly. And that's because they just don't have enough tongue awareness of what's happening. Now, there's a little trick here with the L sounds. And I think I know exactly why your American friends said that they're still touching the roof of the mouth. So they're technically wrong and technically right at the same time. So let's lay this out. So we know there's two types of L's. Okay, if you don't know that there's two types of L's, then I have lessons about the two types of L's. Most teachers call them light L and dark L. I don't know who this is. Light L and dark L. I don't use those terms because they're confusing and meaningless. So, oh my God, this person. One second, guys. Sorry. Hello? There's nobody there. Okay, somebody just called me 2 times. As soon as I hung up on them, they called me right back, and then nobody answers. They better not call me again. I'm gonna have to figure out how to block them or something. I don't know. Okay. Things. What was it? Oh yeah. So light L, dark L. I don't use those terms. I use the term full L consonant, which is the light L, and half L vowel sound, which is the dark L. And I explain why I use these terms. I don't have to go into all that right now. But and you can also find the dark L, the half L vowel sound on my vowel chart. So you can know approximately where it is and what part of your tongue you should use. Now, the thing about the L, the rule, which Americans usually break this rule most of the time, but which is really funny, actually, given that you're talking to Americans and they still give you the wrong information. It's because of how we consciously think about it. So the rule is that if you have an L at the start of a syllable, it's supposed to be a full L, which would be the light L, right? So your tongue comes up. It's going to be, in English, it's a little bit flat. It's not straight up. And it's la, la, la. You can touch your teeth. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. La, 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 la. Okay. So we say like, love, lose. Okay. Even if it's in the middle, right? If I say allow, okay, it's allow. So that L, don't worry about the spelling. It doesn't matter if there's 2 L's there. It's just 1 L sound. The L is at the start of that second syllable, so it's still supposed to be a full L, light L. Okay. If the L is at the end of a syllable, like in always, else, and it doesn't have to be the last sound, right? Like in else, it's not the exact last sound, but it's not at the start of a syllable. Okay. So it's fine. It would count as the end as far as the L goes. So always, else, all right, it's always, else. The S is just attached at the end there. All right. Okay. With little, the first L is at the start of the syllable, so it's supposed to be here. La, la, la. And then that second L is at the end. So it's little, okay. Now that's the two types of L's, and they're general guideline rules of when you're supposed to use which one. That's all fine. Now let's talk about reality. In reality, now we will follow those rules sometimes. I mean, it's things come out that way. But what Americans tend to do is we really like this half L vowel sound, the dark L. And so even when we're supposed to use the full L, we'll still tend to use the dark or the half L vowel sound. So, for example, in little, that first L, li, we can say li, little. It's too little. Now, will we always do that? No, it's very natural to still hit that L there, but we don't always, we commonly break their rule. Okay, I'm not telling you that you should always break the rule. I'm not telling you that you should never break the rule. It's just as common that we do break that rule. It kind of depends. If it's a little hard to say, then we're not going to break it. But that full L, now the other side of this, the full L is technically always possible. So you could say always, full L, always, else, all right, little, bring that L back up, okay? That would be fully enunciated, okay? Technically, the fully enunciated L, we only have one L sound, okay? This ties back into what I talk about with like the range and flow and quality of sounds. But the fully enunciated L, there's actually only one. And that's where we touch the top. La, la, la. You could technically always use that L, and you wouldn't be wrong. You just wouldn't sound natural, okay? Especially in American English. This half L vowel sound, or the dark L, it's actually technically like a lazier L. And they're actually on a range all the way from the full or the complete half L, like all the way in that dark position, dark L, all the way up to that full L, the light L, anywhere in there. Now, when you're doing the dark L, the half L vowel sound back here, you could really be anywhere in here as long as you have the bass there, and you're not touching. We'll still interpret it as that half L vowel, the darker L sound. Now, when you ask your American friends, and you say, okay, when you say these words and tell me, what do you do with the L in your tongue? Now they're going to be consciously focused on the L sound. I think most natives aren't aware that we have two L's. I wasn't aware that we have two L's. It's just we think of L as L. What's the L sound? L. That's it, right? And so if you ask an American to consciously say, okay, what do you do with your mouth when you say the L in words like always, else, all right? They're going to focus on the L sound, and they might sort of catch on that, oh yeah, I'm actually not touching the top. But more than likely what they're going to do is they're going to focus on what we consciously think of as an L sound, which would be that full consonant, or the light L. And they're going to say, yeah, I touch the top, always, else, all right, little. Okay, so they're not wrong in telling you that. They're just not aware that we have this other L. They're not conscious of that fact. Just like, for example, with the THs, most natives are not aware that we have this dental T or D variation. So instead of saying this, you can say this, not dis with a regular D, this. Super common. You'll hear it everywhere. You'll hear it in the news. It's not informal. And most natives are not aware of it because doing that dental D instead of a regular D is interpreted by an English speaker's ear, an American English speaker's ear, as a TH. They're identical in the brain. And we're just not consciously aware that we're actually doing something different. I would strongly recommend that you go watch my videos on the L sounds if you haven't already. If you have questions after that, come back. It takes some practice, definitely takes some practice. And there's all the vowel sounds, the monophthongs, individual vowels, E, I, O, right, whatever. I teach O as an individual sound. It's possible, it doesn't matter. Or the diphthongs, which would be like A, I, whatever. And even the R-colored vowels, which are also technically diphthongs. All of them can be L-colored. Okay. And when you L-color them, right, the L is going to be not at the start of the syllable. And so it's going to be that dark L sound. So if we say, let's see, steel, instead of steel, with the L coming up, steel, steel. Okay. So it's an L-colored E. Technically, you don't have to L-color them. I talk about that. I have lessons for that. You can watch all that. But, or if we say, like in always, all right, it's plus colored, all. So you just have to first figure out how to do that by itself, and then figure out, okay, if I want to go from to and color it, how do I make my tongue do that? Right? I know how to do I know how to do How do I blend them? All. Just like R. You have to figure out how to blend and So you just break it down, you build it up, whichever ones you have difficulty with, give it extra practice. At the end of the day, that's what you got to do. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that was kind of a long explanation, but go watch the videos for more information. And if you have more questions, just let me know. Wendell, welcome. Can the word professor be used as I like how you capitalized it. Instead of putting like quotations or something, you just like professor. Can the word professor be used as a title at high or primary school too? So we say high school or primary school. It's kind of weird. I know what you're doing here is good, right? Because we say like this or this blank. But here, for me, it sounds kind of weird. I would say high school or primary school. And actually, in American English, we don't tend to say primary school. We say elementary school. We have elementary school, middle school, and high school. And that's what most Americans will use. I don't know about certain regions and whatever. But anyway, no, we do not. We only use professor in a college or university setting. So after high school, it'd be very, very strange. Like if back in high school, if I were to say, oh, professor, whoever, we don't do that. What we do from high school and below, so elementary school to high school, we say Mr. or Miss, Mrs., whatever it is, and then their last name. And that's how they introduce themselves. I'm Mr. Moore, and I'm your teacher, blah, 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 blah. And they say, oh, Mr. Moore, I have a question. Okay, that's all it is. So do students at primary school, elementary school, say this word? No. Gabriel, I want to study more grammar, but I don't know where to start, nor the things I need to study the most. Correct use of nor. Not bad. In regular everyday American English, you could just say or there. It doesn't matter. As I said before, nor, although it does exist and you will hear people use it, it's more or less dying out, and it's kind of just being replaced by or. But anyway, just a little note there on common speech, natural speech. You are correct there. It sounds fine. Okay. Should I study everything from the beginning to more advanced? It's a good question. It's a very, very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have this content yet. What I would point you to, if I already had it made, would be to go through my English blueprint, which I'm going to be making. I have a whole guide here, Q3 of next year. So starting in the second half of next year, I'm going to make the English blueprint, which is supposed to take somebody from zero knowledge, absolute zero knowledge, all the way up to upper intermediate in terms of like the biggest, most powerful, most useful grammar to get you understanding the language, to get you speaking the language, or whatever your goals are. It doesn't cover every little grammar point and all that stuff. So I would point you there first, but I don't have that. And then if you already knew all the stuff in there, then you can figure out what you need to fill in the gaps. It's kind of a tough thing because I don't know exactly where you are. I don't know what your weaknesses are. The first thing I would say is, of course, there's nothing wrong with grammar study in itself, but grammar study should always be de-emphasized, meaning it should not be a primary focus. But in your case, maybe you say, hey, I need, a little bit more grammar knowledge. I need to, kind of figure out these things, whatever, fill in some gaps. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So I'm going to let you be the determiner of what you need in this case. I'm going to give you two possible recommendations. One, this is sort of, well, I guess they're both kind of heavy approaches. You can get yourself a complete grammar reference, or you can probably find one online. A complete American English grammar reference, specifically American English, because remember, the grammar usage between American and British English is a little bit different. They're mostly the same language, but there's some different things. And specifically, I would even focus on spoken English, because if you learn a lot of the formal, technically correct grammar and you use it in speech, you're just going to sound like a textbook. So like a complete spoken American English grammar guide or something like that. Try to find something like that, and then just go through, look at the big things first, right? Like verb tenses, modes, right? Modes and moods. So modes would be like can do, must do, might do, whatever. Moods would be like the subjunctive mood, the imperatives, like do it is imperative, it's a command. Subjunctive we talked about before. In English, it looks mostly the same as the simple past, but it's not. So if I were you, I would do it instead of I was. Things like that. Make sure you have all those big pieces first and that you can use them, right? Because it's not enough to understand them. That's great, but it doesn't help you actually use the language. Practice using them. Make sure you can use them. Then from there, look up, just go through that reference or whatever it is and say, okay, what would also be like a potentially big thing? And you might have to determine that. It's probably not going to be organized that way, although that's how I would organize it. And you say, okay, what's another big thing? Or specifically, like what's something that but you can't use, right? That's not a super small little detailed thing. Or what you just don't know, right? Preferably, again, the smaller the detail, the more specific the little grammar rule is, the less likely you're going to want to study it. Because it's not going to give you a whole lot of benefit. So you're always trying to follow the 80-20. Like, okay, is this going to get, how much benefit is learning this particular grammar knowledge going to get me? And is it something that I know about but can't use, like, immediately? Or is it something that is completely new to me and is going to bring me more benefit? So a couple pieces there. I would use that as sort of like a general guideline. One thing that you can do, there's a technique that I tried to do early on in Spanish that I think can be very, very powerful and useful. One guy, the guy that I found it from, he used it successfully to teach himself Spanish. But for me, it was way too intense and way too detailed, and I eventually gave up. But some people can actually go through it. For me, I was just like, I didn't want to deal with it. But what you do for that technique, essentially, to put it simply, is say you take like a TV show, right? And instead of just like watching the show, you're gonna open up two windows, right? So you have one playing with with English subtitles and one playing with your native language subtitles, right? And of course, it should be a thing in English, right? Like it's an English TV show, not like a Portuguese or Spanish TV show, whatever. I don't know if you need that if you're not a beginner. That's the way that he described to do it if you're a beginner. But either way, the main point is that as you go through the episode, anything that you find, any little grammar that you don't know or that maybe you don't feel comfortable with, or any little word that you don't know, you look it up. Every little thing you find, you look it up. Now, at first, this is very intensive. It's very painstaking. But as you get more and more, you get more comfortable, especially at your level, you're probably not going to have to look up every little thing anyway. So it's not going to be that bad. This can help you maybe fill in a lot of those little gaps, and then make sure that you don't just learn it, but that you actually are practicing and trying to use, like, target that specific area of grammar in example sentences. You can do writing or speaking. It doesn't matter too much, but if you want to use it in speech, try to, emphasize the speaking part. Try to notice that when you're listening to other things in English, not doing that exercise, like, oh yeah, there's that grammar, whatever. So there's awareness, but then there's also the active, trying to use it after you find it. So that's what I would recommend. It's not an easy answer, especially if you're already in the intermediate level, but one of those two things, or you can use both of those in combination. And again, I would try to follow the 80-20 rule. That's usually going to help you, give you the biggest bang for your buck at that point. And then once you master that, or you have a good grasp of that, then you can move on to like a smaller grammar point. And you just keep doing that till you don't need help anymore. So David, welcome, David Rock. Movie. The stress is on the second syllable. No, it's on the first syllable. Movie. If it were on the second syllable, it would be movie. It's movie. And I understand why you're asking the question, because it kind of sounds like the V is going up a bit, but it's not. It's on the movie. A little bit of an illusion going on there. Okay, well, I'm way behind now. See if I can catch up. Theris retracted a message. It's okay. Theris retracted another message. It's okay. There's again. Nevertheless, cares. I think you mean carries, which would not be spelled that way. That's cares. Carries would be this. Carries the meaning of let alone, even less. You could check the last short of Lingua Marina. I guess she made a mistake with I like the dinner, nevertheless I didn't like the dessert. She's as a synonym to but and as a replacement to however and in contrast. I just know that she made a mistake because of the first comment there. Otherwise, I would blindly believe her. So I'm aware of Lingua Marina. Out of curiosity, I've watched some of her things. Her pronunciation is very, very good. Not 100%, very, very close to a native, I think, in like overall. Very good. Her language usage seems to be very, very high as well. She sounds pretty natural. But yeah, if you say something like, I like the dinner, nevertheless, I didn't like the dessert. Let's see. I like the dinner. Nevertheless, I mean, I guess that can make sense. I wouldn't use it there. It doesn't seem like the right word to use there. I'm trying to think of like a very specific context where I might use nevertheless there. I don't know. It's a little bit of a stretch. It's kind of weird. So nevertheless, and there's probably a couple different meanings, but off the top of my head, when I think of nevertheless, it's Yeah, so using it as a replacement for however sounds better than using it as a replacement for but. But it depends on the context and the sentence structure. I'm trying to think. This is an interesting one. Because honestly, I mean, I guess it depends on the speaker, but nevertheless is a phrase that is used, or I guess a word. It's one big word, but it's used. But it's not that, like, I don't want to say it's uncommon, but it's not. There are other words that we would use more commonly than nevertheless. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to think like, okay, how exactly would we use this? Let's see. Nevertheless. Okay, so according to dictionary.com, there's one dictionary entry. It's an adverb. It means nonetheless, notwithstanding, or however, or in spite of something. So a small but nevertheless important change. Now, however, has 5 entries, 4 as adverbs, 1 as a conjunction. So however has a greater range of application, where nevertheless, if you use nevertheless to replace however, it's probably going to be in one specific meaning of however. So just because you see the word however doesn't mean you can always replace it with nevertheless. So especially just the fact that nevertheless only has 1 dictionary entry, at least in this particular dictionary. Not only does that tell me that it's probably not a very commonly used word, but it also has a very narrow specific meaning. And I think in spite of is a really, really good synonymous phrase. Instead of but or however, like you should think of it more in terms of like in spite of something or despite the fact that something. And again, sentence structure, in order to sound natural, the sentence structure is pretty important. So it does sound a bit weird to me personally. It might be correct, but it does sound a little bit weird how she used it in the sentence. It might be technically correct, but it sounds a little weird. So, I mean, from the ears of a native, maybe I'm wrong, but from the ears of a native, just because something's grammatically correct doesn't necessarily mean it's the most natural thing. And so that would be my 2 cents on that. It's an interesting question. Yeah. Notice what I just did there. I said it's interesting. I'm supposed to say an interesting, but I dropped the N. We were talking about that last week, how natives might drop the N before the vowel when you're supposed to say an. And I just did that. Anyway, so moving on. Gabriel, what's the difference between an offender? Okay, I'm gonna try to talk about this in a very broad way, because this is another thing that can maybe get this live stream demonetized. An offender, in a general sense, offender is just somebody who did something that, how do I want to say it? They did something that was either offensive, or they did something that was, that was not acceptable, that was wrong. So, and that could be in a crime, right? Like if you break the law, you are an offender of that law. In a very literal sense, if say you say something and I find that offensive, technically you are an offender, but we don't really tend to think of that word in that particular, like that usage, even though that would technically be correct. You are offending me, so you are an offender. I think we tend to use that, think of it in like a very like legal sense most of the time. Predator, again, I'm going to speak in very general, broad terms. You can go to the dictionary for more specific things. But literally, predator is related to prey, right? Prey and predator. So, like in the wild, you like a lion is a predator, right? And the prey, P-R-E-Y, not P-R-A-Y, or sounds the same as P-R-A-Y, but they're pronounced the same. The lion would be the predator, and say the the zebra or whatever is the prey. It's what's hunted. So a predator hunts, right? And you can apply that in different contexts with slightly different meanings. It's not necessarily always like physically trying to hunt down an animal or something. So if you are in the woods and you are trying to catch a rabbit, technically you are a predator, right? You're trying to catch and eat the rabbit. So in general terms, that's what those two would mean. What's the difference? Basically, I mean, I think that should be pretty clear based on what I said there. But in a legal sense, a predator could be an offender, depending on if the predator broke a law, right? Then they would be offending that law. They would be an offender of that law, but they would also be a predator. So there's legal situations where we might call someone a predator. And that's where we start getting into the blurry line that I don't want to go into, because I don't want to demonetize my video. So we'll leave it at that. Theris, I just know that she made a mistake because of the first. I already did that. Naji, I'm probably saying that horribly. Sorry. You are the best. I just start to know you. Well, thank you. Very good. Any chances to buy American accent classes? VAR, I'm pretty sure this is spam. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, so you are the best. So, well, thank you very much. And a little correction here. So I just start to know you. I just found your channel, or I just started to watch you. Right, in this context, that would be perfect. Just start to know you is a little bit weird in English. Even if you met me personally in real life, we wouldn't use know. That's a common mistake for like Spanish speakers. I don't know what your native language is, because they would use conocer, which literally translates as to know someone or to know something. But anyway, any chances to buy American accent classes? Unfortunately, no. I do not offer my classes to the channel, to the general English accent community, for various reasons. The biggest reason is I'm not looking for students right now. You do technically have a little bit of a chance to work with me or get some feedback from me if you sign up to the Patreon or become a YouTube member and you sign up for a particular level that will give you, like, I give you feedbacks on certain recordings, or on Patreon. All the spots are taken right now, but on Patreon, I have a level where you can get like a 1 hour consultation with me each month. So once a month. Those are all taken right now. So, but if you just want to get some feedback and a little bit of general guidance, you can look into the Patreon or the YouTube membership. There should be like a join button under this video, and you can learn more about the different levels and what you get for each level. In the aforementioned gun, okay. O as in bot, or okay, so specifically, well, it'd be ah. So it'd be like in father, yeah. Also in bot and father is the same. Remember, I have the cot merger. So I think in the unmerged version, bot is like bot with that aw, and then father would be like father, something like that. To me, it's the same sound, ah. And in the name of that gun, it would be the same sound also, ah. It's just the ah vowel sound. Can I get your email address? You can find my email if you go to my channel page and click on the About tab. There, you look down, it'll say like contact or email or something, and then there'll be a button that says show email address. If you click on that, it'll give you the email address. So you can message me if you want, but as I said, I'm not offering classes. There's, I've seen many times from the few novels I still read the phrase "thank you, but no thank you." The translation usually is not good, so I wonder if it's an error. No, that's perfectly fine. When you say "thank you, but no thank you," depending on the tone, it could be maybe a little sarcastic or a little like you sound annoyed, but regardless of tone, thank you, no thank you, it basically means like I appreciate the offer, but no thank you. So instead of saying I appreciate it, but no thank you, it's thank you, but no thank you. Yeah, it's a phrase we use. Me hanging out here is super sketchy. A guy playing COD M. I don't know what the M is. It should be Call of Duty Mobile. I don't know. Said while trying to find a better position. What does sketchy mean? There. Remember, it's a question. So what does sketchy mean? No S on means. Okay, good question. This is a very, very natural word. In fact, I just used this like last night or the other night. So sketchy, it's, I don't want to call it slang because it's not slang, but it kind of sounds a little bit informal. It's like a very casual word, but it means like, it's kind of hard to describe it exactly. It's sort of like suspicious, unsafe, something that you should like kind of really be aware of, be careful because something bad might happen. It's sketchy. So if you say like someone looks sketchy, like, maybe he has like a hood, he has like, dark eyes. He look, like really tired. And he's like looking around and stuff like that would be sketchy, right? So a guy playing Call of Duty, right? If he says me hanging out here is super, which by the way, that me is also very natural there. Me hanging out here is super sketchy. I imagine. So he's playing Call of Duty. Maybe he's camping. Maybe he's a sniper or something. I don't know, but he's in an area where he's like, okay, like maybe it's kind of open. He can't really defend his back very easily, and so he's like, okay, this is not like a safe place. Like I need to, like, something bad might happen if I stay here, so I need to like go somewhere else. Yeah, very, very natural. Very natural. Good question. What's it mean to reason with someone? To reason with someone means, I'm trying not to get too much into subtleties here. So let's say I'm talking to you, and we have some sort of disagreement or whatever. It doesn't have to be like a serious disagreement. It could even be like, say, like I want to buy your car, and you're asking a value, like say you want $10,000, but the car's only worth $5,000, right? It could be something as simple as that. Now that seems, the amount that you're asking seems unreasonable, right? It's like way too high. Like, why would I pay that much for a car that is only worth this much? Okay, so I want to reason with you, meaning that I want to sort of not debate, but I want to sort of try to use logic and convince you to be reasonable, because up here you're unreasonable. I'm trying to get you to be like, hey, and it could very well be that maybe you are reasonable, but I don't think it's reasonable, right? I think I wouldn't pay that much for a car. Come on, 5,000, not 10,000. So it doesn't matter what's actually fair or reasonable, but the person who is reasoning with someone else, they think that their perspective is right and logical, and they are trying to convince the other person using logic or reason, synonyms as a noun, logic or reason, in order to create some result. Okay, in this case, I'm trying to get the car for a cheaper price. So that's all it means. You're using logic to try to, convince someone of something, basically, in a general sense. Okay. Gray and gray. Yes. Same pronunciation, different spelling. Technically, actually, one is a British spelling, one is an American spelling. And I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure that's the case. That's what I was told. In reality, I'm actually not sure which is which. So I'll use both. Like if sometimes as I'm typing or if I'm writing, sometimes it comes out with an E, sometimes it comes out with an A. But yes, they're pronounced the same. It's similar to, although I guess British would just slightly change the pronunciation on that. I was going to say with color, how they spell it Colour, but I think they say like color or something like that. Like they actually change it. I'm not sure. But anyway, we do Color, so it's the American spelling. Anyway, yes, they'd be pronounced the same. And it really doesn't matter which one you use. We don't care. Do you blend the S in that's or that? I was gonna say that's cool. That's school in a way that basically sounds like that's cool. Okay. That's school. That's cool. That's school. No. There's a very slight difference. Now in fast speech, like really fast speech, it can break down into that, like I say, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. And it's kind of okay. Are you saying that's school or that's cool? That's in super fast speech. But in normal or especially slower speech, in slower speech, we're probably going to separate it like I just did. That's school, right? To make it very clear. Within the range of normal speech, what we're going to do here is remember one of the general linking rules. Actually, I don't think I have it under my general linking rules, but I have it, I think, in that lesson about like all the remaining major linking rules or something like that. When you have two of the same consonant, what am I doing? Two of the same consonant sound, not letter, sound. Remember, always sound, 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 not letter. Letter doesn't matter. It depends on the sound because they don't always match, right? When you have two of the same consonant sounds, of course, I didn't put the S on the end of sounds. The same consonant sounds. What happens is you get a slightly longer version of that sound. Now, the exception to this, technically speaking, is the stop sound. So, like if I say that time, we have a T and a T. You're supposed to like stop the first T, push out the second T, because you can't hold it, right? You have to. There's no way to hold a stop sound unless you stop it. Like you hold the stop itself, right? Where we're like S, you can just right. You can actually hold that sound out. And then for the and the that's also a little bit of a special thing. But for consonants in general, the TH to TH, S to S, L to L, L to L actually works really well, but it can work a little differently. The point is that usually when you have two of the same consonant sounds together between words, it will create a slightly longer version of that sound. Now, be careful with spelling because, for example, we have like the word pass, which is spelled with two S's, but it's not a long S. Okay, it's just spelled with two S's. So this has to be like between words where we have like one S sound and then another S sound, and then it just becomes a slightly longer S sound. So if I want to say that's cool, then there would just be that one S that connects. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Or if I want to say that's school, you're going to hear a slightly longer S. That's school. That's school. That's school. And that's also really important too, because if I don't lengthen that S, it could, instead of sounding like that's cool, it might sound like that school, right? And so we don't know, okay, are you saying that school, that's school, or that that's cool? Okay, so this lengthened S is very important if you're trying to say that is school with a contracted is. Anyway. And then if I do it in really fast speech and you don't understand from the context for whatever reason, then I would repeat it over here, right? You say, that's cool, what's cool? I say, no, that's school. Saying so because I need to clarify, I'm going to bring it over here, break the two words apart. Very good example of how we might move up and down that range. Okay, can I say, many questions from Theris today, this is good. Can I say I also think the same as Karen to mean that we both share the same idea and thoughts? Is there another better way to mean that, or the phrase in the quotes is okay? I also think the same as Karen. There's nothing wrong with that phrase. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, it means you share the same idea or thoughts. You particularly your opinion, right? So Karen thinks that we should do this. I think the same as Karen. Now I just realized there's actually two ways that this could be meant. Because off the top of my head, I was thinking of it as an opinion. So Karen has an opinion on what we should do, or what's correct, or whatever her opinion is, right? And if you say, I also think the same as Karen, which also, we probably wouldn't use also unless somebody else first said, I think the same as Karen, or some similar phrase. And then you say, I also think the same as Karen. So now there's three people in agreement, right? Because that would be the also in this particular case. But anyway, regardless of that, it would be like you agree with that opinion, right, of what's right or what you should do or whatever. But it could also mean, if you say, I think the same as Karen, instead of meaning I agree with her opinion, you mean that we think in the same way, which I guess is what you're asking here. Yeah. So the sentence, the exact meaning of the sentence is actually ambiguous. It can have two completely different meanings depending on exactly what you want to say. So like the way of thinking versus agreeing with this particular opinion, like this particular case. Context will usually take care of which one it'll mean. And there's not really a problem, but yeah, it can mean that you think the same way. Yeah. So good question. Other ways to say it, I mean, I don't know. As I said, since there's two meanings here, I don't want to sit here and try to think like, okay, well, in this case, you could also say this. In this case, you could also say this. Whatever. Is but used in a way that means except, erasing everything but the urge to kill. Nobody knows but you. So erasing everything except the urge. That would be fine. Nobody knows except you. That would also be fine. Yeah, but can be used in in a way that means accept. Yes, that's perfectly fine. Is it grammatically correct? I think so. Definitely very natural. Yes, that's for sure. And that's really what we care mostly about is what is natural. How do natives actually speak, not necessarily what always is technically correct. Could you explain the use and pronunciation of grandeur? Okay, so the pronunciation is grandeur, which is kind of a weird one because you see a D and then you see this EUR, and it's like, how do I even pronounce that, right? Yes, it's, again, go to forvo.com, check the pronunciation, forvo.com. Dictionary is not always the best source of this. Forvo.com is usually a much better source. Now, but yes, it's pronounced gran. That's the easy part with a. Not easy to pronounce necessarily, but a, right? Gran. Jur. So it's going to sound like grandeur. Oops, my keyboard. Yeah, grandeur. I missed the A. How did I miss the A? There you go. So it was like that, grandeur. So it's just at the end, grandeur. Grandeur. Some people might say with a like or. I'm not sure. I don't. It sounds a little weird to me, but I think there's a way slightly different than jur that some people say it. But that's the way I say it, and that's the way I usually hear it, grandeur. So that's it. Now the use of it, it's a bit of a fancy word. It's not an everyday word. It sounds grandiose, which is a related word. Grandeur is the noun form, grandiose or grandiose. Yeah, grandiose. Also spelled with a D, but it's grandiose. Would be the adjective form. And yeah, that's a good way to explain it. The quality or state of being impressive or awesome, the grandeur of the Rocky Mountains. So like the Rocky Mountains are amazing. Like, wow, like it feels connected to like amazing, like really not just sophisticated, but like really well built or developed in like a very, very high, super sophisticated way. It feels like it's related to like majestic, you know, kind of, which majestic is related to majesty, which is like your majesty, the king, the queen, right? So grandeur has this feeling of this sort of like, wow, like this elevated sort of high, like amazing, like that's just wow, like wow. Right. And we talk about the grandeur of something. So it's like the amazingness of something. And like this, again, it's very high. It pushes something to a very high level. So it's a strong word. It's a very strong word. I think in everyday speech, a little bit more colloquial. We would probably, like millennials and younger, would probably use a term like epic. We tend to use epic instead of like grandiose. So like oh, the Rocky Mountains are epic, right? So like they're grandiose, or the epicness of the Rocky Mountains. So depends on what you want to use there, but there you go. That's what I would say. The dictionary does list other meanings, quality or state of being lofty or elevated in concept or treatment. As I was saying, it kind of pushes it up. Being exalted, right, on high, something that is grand. So again, no matter how you use it, it's going to sort of push it up to like a very high state of awesomeness or impressiveness. Okay, good. There's, I can't find a way to say aprovechar melhor. Yeah, I don't speak Portuguese. Well, I would assume aprovechar would be aprovechar in Spanish, and melhor would be mejor. So to literally translate it from Spanish, if that's correct, it would be like to better take advantage of something. Like this phrase I tried to mean once: I can't afford Cambly. I really would like to have the full plan so I can take better advantage of, like, again, literally translated. What we would probably say in that case, that would mean the equivalent. Remember, between languages, there may be like a literal translation that works, but depending on the context, it may not be what we would actually say in that case. Here, based on this context, what I would probably naturally say is, I can't afford Cambly. I really would like to have the full plan so I can get the most out of it, right? So I can get the most out of it, and that should, the meaning of that should translate perfectly into Portuguese, even though the words aren't word for word. I'm pretty sure that's what you mean there. So to get the most out of something, or get the most benefit from it. The exact phrase can vary. Or a little bit of an idiom, so I can get my money's worth, or get the biggest bang for my buck. It's an idiom, the biggest bang for my buck. Buck meaning dollar. It's a more colloquial or informal way to say dollar. Biggest bang for my buck. Yeah, good. When you take advantage of something to its fullest, exactly, you take the opportunity to get everything out of it, make the most of it. How do I fit it there? Yeah, exactly. So exactly what I was just saying. Perfect. David, welcome. You probably got here a little while ago, and I'm just now acknowledging your presence. So thank you very much. And that actually reminds me, now that David's here, because I was thinking about this earlier. Yes, David, I was thinking about you. What can I say? You're just so awesome. I don't know if I want to announce this here. I know we have a lot of questions to get to, but important announcement. I know you guys can kind of see my board there, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff on it. On the business side of English Hacks, I mentioned a couple live streams ago, or maybe the last live stream, I'm going to be building English Hacks out in more, not just like a YouTube channel, but like a full business. I'm going to rebrand my books under English Hacks and all this stuff. And one of the things I need is an assistant. And at first it would be quite small, just helping with like one video a week. Eventually going to 2 videos a week. And then once I can get an editor, it might go up to say 3, 4, even 5 videos a week. But the editor is a separate job. So the assistant will not be editing. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, I don't know. I think it would be nice if I could get somebody from the community who would be interested in the job. You would actually be paid. I have to look into the exact details of how that works tax-wise, and how I would, probably through PayPal or something, I don't know, to get you the money. But I'm still working out details. But I would either want somebody from the community, or, I have to go find somebody through some, resource online. So this is the first official announcement. I might make like a little short video announcement or a community post about it, and people can respond and let me know if they're interested. If anybody here is interested, you can let me know through my email, which again is on the About tab of my channel page. And again, I've still got to work out some details and all this stuff, but what I have worked out now, starting with 1 video a week, what the assistant would do, you have 3 primary jobs. Job number 1 is to, this wouldn't necessarily apply to every single video because it sort of depends on the nature of the video. But task number 1 would be to extract the audio from the video, which I will show you how to do. It's not that difficult of a task. And make the podcast version of that video, so the audio only version. I will also show you how to do that. It's not that hard. You can probably create the podcast version and upload it to Anchor, which I'm also going to show you how to do in maybe like 15 minutes at the most, like 15-20 minutes. Depends on maybe exactly what you have to do with that video, but I did that a couple times, and it didn't take too long once I kind of got all the pieces in place, and I'll be giving you all those pieces and walking you through it. So it's not going to take you, 2 hours to do that. Okay. So make the audio, the podcast version. Again, not for every video. It depends on the video, but probably for most videos. Task number 2, okay, would be to go through the YouTube captions, the auto-generated captions, fix any mistakes that it has, right? So whoever applies, you need to have a good enough ear and be familiar enough with American English, ideally, to actually catch the mistakes that YouTube makes. Some of them will be very obvious, some of them will be very subtle. After you do that, you're going to take that the file, the subtitle file, which I think you can download from YouTube. I'll double check and have all this worked out for you so you know exactly what to do. But you're going to take that and you're going to make the blog version, the written version. Okay. This will be posted on the website, which I'm going to be getting up within the next month or so, as well as on the English Hacks Medium blog, which, again, I'll give you access to, and you'll know what to do there. All of this will be written out step by step, exactly what to do. That is probably going to take you the most time, just because you have to go through the video, fix all the stuff, and then extract it and format it a little bit for a blog post. I expect maybe that'll take you maybe an hour, depends on the length of the video. But and for the blog post, sometimes certain images might be required depending on exactly what's in the video and stuff. And then you would put a link to the actual video at the end of the blog or at the start of the blog, whatever. So that would be that part. So task 1, podcast, task 2, blog. So now we have a video format, an audio format, a written format across multiple platforms. This is going to help give English Hacks much more exposure to a wider audience, as well as give people the content type that they want. Because some people like reading more, some people like watching more, some people like listening more. Okay. The third task, and this is, as far as I know, this is the last task I need an assistant for, would be to handle social media related things. And I don't have all the details of that yet. I don't want it to be too crazy involved. I'm not looking for a social media expert, just somebody who, can handle tweet out a new video, probably cross-post the YouTube video to the Facebook page, some things like that. Maybe in a very limited capacity, making some visual elements, which again, I can also show you how to do. It's not that hard. So that I need to fine tune and figure out exactly what I want you to do, but there will be a full document for this. So if anybody is interested, I want to get back to your questions here. This is the first official announcement. If anybody here is potentially interested in that job, send me a message on my email. And we'll go with that. As far as the pay goes, because you're probably interested in that as well. As I said, at first it would be 1 video a week, because that's what I'm currently going to be doing more or less. And this is excluding shorts and stuff. I'm going to be doing all that if I do anything with shorts. You don't have to worry about that. But what did I have worked out there? This is subject to change. But what I have worked out now, what I'm thinking is I'm imagining, based on my experience of trying to do the blog post and the audio, the podcast and all this stuff, it shouldn't take you any more than about 2 to 3 hours per video. It does depend on the length of the video, but they're usually between 8 and 15 minutes. Not too bad, but I'm imagining about 3 hours per video. If it's a little bit more, the pay will be adjusted based on how much you actually work. I'm going to trust you that, you actually, if it took you 2 hours, you're going to say 2 hours, not 3 hours, which is why I need somebody that I can trust. Again, I'm trying to go to the community first, because there's some people here that I think I would probably be able to trust with that. But I'm thinking $12 an hour. So 1 video, 3 hours, $12 is $36 for a video. Of course, this is in US dollars, so depending on where you are, this might be a lot of money for you. You will have to have a very good grasp of American English specifically. I don't want you to have to run everything by me for grammatical corrections and things like that. And I don't want it to sound British, because there's certain uses of have, for example, that sound more British than American. Obviously, it's American English channel. I want it to have that American sound. So I need somebody who's probably at least at the advanced level. And if we're doing $12 an hour, 3 hours per video, that's about 72 hours. Oh, wait, hold on. That's 2 videos. So that would be $36 a week. 4 videos a week would be, I think it comes out to $144 a month, which isn't a whole lot, but that's to start. As the channel grows, as I get an editor, right, you'll have a lot more work to do. and you'll be getting paid more. I think the max, what I worked out in the calculations, I might be wrong. I might change some things or have to revisit some things, but I think it comes out to about $600 a month if we're doing like 5 videos a week or something like that. That doesn't sound right, but something around there, about $600 a month. So that's a decent amount, especially if you live in a country that with a currency not as strong as the dollar, which is most places. So that's what we're looking at. Subject to change, not written in stone yet, but anybody interested, let me know. Send me a message to my email address. Okay. And I like Damon's like, how is everyone? How is Josh? Like, you're asking them how I am. Yeah. I don't know. I guess they can answer that. I seem fine. Yes. So, Delio, would it sound natural if I were to say ergo in a casual conversation? It might crop up. That is a bit of a, I think the term, I always forget what this term, I think it's idiolectic. It's idiolect, right? Like the way an individual speaks. Some people, such as myself, like to use fancier words sometimes, just because how we speak, we tend to use certain words. Certain different people use different words. We all generally use more or less the same words, but there's obviously other words that we can use, and some people like using other words. So it'll come up every once in a while. Most people probably won't use it. Would it sound natural? Yeah. You do run the risk. That's a phrase we have, run the risk, meaning there's some danger here. You do run the risk of maybe trying to sound intellectual or trying to sound really smart. Like, oh, look at me, I'm so smart and sophisticated because I use words like ergo. But I don't think most people would get that impression. It depends on who you're talking to. Like if you were to use that with me, I would just be like, oh, okay, like that kind of came out of nowhere, but yeah, not a big deal. So it should be fine. It should be fine. It's your choice. Yeah. Hypothetical situation here. Someone sends a gift to you through the post office. The package is delivered to your home, and that was an unexpected present. So later on you send a message or call. Message retracted. That just fits so perfectly. You retracted your message. Okay. Thanking the person. Do you say, I love it, or I loved it? Or both work? Both work. Right? Two, plural, no S. Both work. Fine. In Portuguese, it's always past tense. Interesting. So I wonder if it's the same in English. You always use present tense when you want to say that. Okay. Good question. Very, very good question. Yeah, this is something that can shift between languages, right? Where you like always use one particular tense, or maybe the particular tense that you always use in a different language is a different tense that is always used in that particular type of context. In English, I guess it depends on exactly what it is. So if it is something consumable, like they send you chocolates, right? And you have already eaten the chocolates by the time you message or call them, then you would use past tense because the chocolates are gone. You have consumed them, right? But if you either haven't consumed them yet, or it's not something to consume, like they send you a shirt or something, using the past tense will give them the wrong impression. So if it's something that is consumable, something you can eat, and you haven't eaten it, but you use the past tense, the listener is going to understand that you already ate them. Okay. If it's a shirt and you use the past tense, that's either going to sound like, well, I loved it at first, but then I don't know, I took a closer look and I don't really like it. Or maybe like, oh yeah, I loved it, but then I gave it away. Like it would be kind of weird. So yes, as long as it's not something that you can actually eat and then contact the person to use the past tense, because now it's not there anymore, we would use present tense always. Okay, so context is important. It can switch to the past, but usually you're going to use the present there. Yeah. Good question. Very good question. And that's interesting because so in Portuguese, what that tells me is that in the subconscious, in the mind of a Portuguese speaker, the way that the grammar works is you received it, right? Past tense, because that has already happened. You received, that's now in the past, right? So you receive it, present tense, and then now that you have received it, you call them and you say, oh, I loved it. So in Portuguese, the thinking is that you're sort of placing it like the moment you received it and you saw what it was, you loved it. And so you tell them, I loved it. But in English, we think about it a little bit differently. This is a really good example of how the roots underneath the surface in the subconscious mind for verbs and tenses can be slightly different between languages, right? So I do think that there's sort of I don't want to say logic. I think we can use probably a logical approach for it. Like I just explained, it's very logical to look at it as I received it, so I loved it, and now I'm telling you that I loved it. But we don't do that in English. We don't think of it that way. So you could apply logic to it, but regardless, there's a certain feeling and a certain just connection of how tenses are used in the subconscious that is a little different between English and Portuguese here. And that's very interesting. That's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in exploring. So I like that example. I might reference that example later in my verb book as a good example of that type of thing. So thank you for that. Yes, and I'll go ahead and give you a shout. I'll give you credit for that too. Which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I guess I should tell you this because I posted this on Patreon and on the YouTube community. But next year, actually, I think I mentioned this at the end of last live stream. Next year, I am going to be writing the verb book in Q2, which means starting like April, May, June. I'm going to try to write the book in only 3 months, which is going to be very hard. But I do have plans next year to write the verb book that would be like the logic of English prepositions, the logic of English verbs, but I'm probably going to call it like the essence of English verbs instead. So anyway, moving on. Okay, my first question is about the word likey, I guess. I hear a lot of people say it like likey, even though I'm certain the correct way to say it is lychee. Okay. Lychee. As the word comes from Chinese and originally spelled lychee. Okay. It also, I was pronounced in my first language. And a sub question: what is your favorite fruit? Okay. Interesting. So I don't even know what this word means. I assume it's a fruit based on the context. Variant spelling. Okay, so apparently this is a variant spelling of lychee. Lychee is, it says lychee. Fruit of a Chinese tree, the soapberry family, or the tree itself. Okay. I've never heard of this, ever. Let's see. Get an image here. Okay. Looks kind of like a, what is that? I want to say like mixing like a dragon fruit and a cherry, I guess. Kind of, sort of weird. I don't know. Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that. So as I saw the word, I tried to pronounce it likey for whatever reason, probably because of the Y. I don't know. There's probably some pattern in English for that. And that would probably answer your question, because people either maybe haven't heard about it, or the people who first saw that word spelled that way, that's their introduction to it, they naturally want to pronounce it that way. And so it just spread. That's probably why. Okay. But yeah, apparently it's supposed to be spelled lychee, or pronounced lychee. So there you go. What is your favorite fruit? I don't know if I have a favorite fruit. I actually never really ate much fruit until like a few years ago after I became vegan, because, you know, I would probably die if I didn't start. I was a very, very picky eater. I used to eat almost nothing but like meat and potatoes, essentially. Lots of meat, lots of cheese, lots of potatoes. But now I eat a lot of other things. I like mandarin oranges. I really like blackberries. I know there's another one. I can't think of it. Blackberries is probably like first or second. I know there's one more. I can't think of it right now. But anyway, yeah. There's still a lot of fruit that I don't really care for, like peaches. I don't really like. Bananas, I can eat them, but I've always kind of been like, banana. Not really a big fan. So I don't know. Could you make a minimal pair on Welcome Lily? Long time no see. Could you make a minimal pair video on feel, few, and go goal? I'm pretty sure I have. There should be a short on that. I know I've talked about go and goal before, but feel and few. That's not even a minimal pair. Those uses two. Those uses. I can't speak. Those use two completely different vowels. Feel is an Lcolored E. Few is an oo with a Y sound in front of it. So those aren't even the same vowels. So I don't know if maybe like you learned them wrong or you've been trying to pronounce them wrong, but those are completely different. Now I don't remember, Lily, what your native language is. If you're a Portuguese speaker, it would make a lot of sense why that might be a minimal pair for you, because in Portuguese you'd probably try to say feel as like feel or something like that. But remember, in the L, we're never gonna say like ew. Like that would be like maybe in few. It's kind of similar to that, but an L at the end in English is not the same as in Portuguese. So you say like legal, which I'm probably saying that horribly, but like legal, right? Where if I were to try to like legal in English, that actually is a word which would be legal. But if I try to say it with sort of the same stress as Portuguese, but with the L in English, it would be like if I were to see that in Portuguese and I never heard it, I would try to say like, legal, not legal. So very different. Very, very different. But go and goal, I'm pretty sure I have a short. There should be a playlist that has all my shorts in them. And you should be able to find that somewhere in there. If not, I don't know, maybe I can address that again later. What's the full range of the word carton when used with nouns? When I hear the word, I usually think of a paper box. And then posted the same question. Okay, so, well, based on your question, I'm actually kind of confused with what the exact question is, because when we talk about full range, usually I'm talking about pronunciation. But you say when I hear the word, I usually think of a paper box. So you're talking about like the different meanings, like how it can be used, or are you talking about the pronunciation? I'm a little confused there. So I'll come back to that. Naji, he is coach. Well, I am, I guess, yes. And Naji, I'm going to skip down really quick to Naji's other thing. Do you provide classes for American accent improvements? So as I said earlier, no, I do not. I'm not looking for students. I do teach English currently. Pronunciation, accent reduction. That's what I do. I'm not looking for students. I'm generally not open to the community here. I'm not here to find new students. But you can get some feedback from me if you go to Patreon or YouTube memberships, like I was saying earlier, and sign up for one of the levels that will give you some like feedback for recordings. And that's the best I can offer you at this time. Is it ever used when referring? Okay, so back to carton. Is it ever used when referring to a packaging that's not boxy in shape? And how does the word tub, a tub of spread, a tub of ice cream, tub of spread? I think you mean butter. I've never heard anybody say a tub of spread. I'm assuming that's butter. Different from a carton. Okay. So carton. Okay, so I'm gonna use since I know this won't help everybody necessarily, but it will help David. So David, how in Japanese there's like a million different counters depending on the type of thing you're thinking about, right? So if it's like a long flat object, you use what is it, mai, I think. It's like ni mai, san mai, whatever. Or I think for small animals, it's like piki, like ipiki, nihiki, things like that. Not exactly the same, obviously, especially not grammatically. But this is sort of a question like that. Depending on exactly what we're talking about, we'll use different words. So when I think of a carton, it is sort of like you said, like a paper box. The first association in my mind is like a carton of cigarettes, or a carton of milk. Okay. Obviously, those are two slightly different shapes, but they're kind of papery in a way, and whatever. Now you can also have a bottle of milk, which would probably be made out of plastic instead. So it depends on, like, you wouldn't call, just because it's a container with milk in it doesn't mean it's a carton, right? It depends on specifically what we're talking about. If you get, say, I think we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, like a thing of water bottles, you might call that a case of water bottles, not a carton of water bottles. That'd be weird. But that also has this, I mean, it's kind of boxy in a way. It doesn't cover the whole thing, but it's kind of boxy. It's, cardboard, papery, whatever. So we think, well, maybe I could use the same thing. Nope. Different thing, different context. I will say, off the top of my head, I can't think of when I would use carton that wouldn't be cigarettes or milk. Carton, or that would be something other than this, like, boxy, papery, boxy type thing. I can't off the top of my head. Maybe that it does exist, but I don't think so. We tend to use carton for like very specific things, like this. How does the word tub differ from carton? A tub is made out of plastic, has a removable lid. There's even like storage tubs. So if you have like a big thing of plastic with like a lid, and you can store it away with which I think we can also call that like a storage bin, but you can call it a storage tub because it's this like big, has like like a well to it, like a bathtub, right? And it's usually made out of plastic, so it's a storage tub. You can call it that. So a tub is usually going to have this sort of, like, it doesn't have to be long. Like ice cream tub is usually it's rounder rather than like this way, but there's going to be some sort of depth to it, like it's some sort of container. It'll have like a removable lid. It's usually made out of plastic, but it depends. Like a bathtub isn't necessarily made out of plastic, and it's usually made to like hold something, water, butter, ice cream, like that. So for yogurt, would you use carton or tub? A carton of yogurt, a tub of yogurt. Carton. I guess it depends on the exact packaging, but probably. I'm trying to think, because I don't even really eat yogurt. A container. I mean, container is like the general purpose word here. You say a container of butter, a container of milk. We wouldn't say a container of cigarettes. It's a little bit weird, but container of ice cream. Ice cream container maybe, but yeah, so it's a little bit weird sometimes with the specific things, but that's a general purpose word. A container of yogurt sounds very natural to me. Yeah, tub of yogurt. If it's like if it's not like a little thing of yogurt, but it's like like a bigger thing, I'd probably call it a tub of yogurt. Yeah. A carton of yogurt. Yes. If the packaging fits, then maybe, but I can't imagine that for yogurt. So yeah. A cup of yogurt. Yeah, if it's a smaller tub, right? So it's more like a cup size. We might say a cup of yogurt, or a yogurt cup. Yeah. So the size is also pretty important too. That will affect it, just like in Japanese. Yeah. Deeper. I did that. Is saying forward, like forward, considered a reduction or an alternate pronunciation? That's a good question. It's actually funny because I was listening to something earlier, and the guy that I was listening to actually pronounced it that way, and I was like, why did he say it that way? So it's either a reduction. I just haven't really noticed it, but it really stood out to me when he said it. So I think it's an alternate pronunciation. You have to move forward, 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 move forward, forward, move forward, move forward. Yeah, no, I think it's so the way that he said, because he said it very clearly, which if it's, I mean, just because you say it really clearly doesn't necessarily mean you can't reduce, but usually the clearer we say it, the more we tend to unreduce. So because he said it so clearly and he still said faux instead of for, that's probably why it stood out to me. But now that I'm thinking about it, like if I just normally say the word, like, oh, you have to move forward. There might be, it could be solid it could be a little bit of an like for, forward. Or maybe, especially if it's really fast speech, I guess you can reduce that R all the way out and say you have to move forward. Yeah, probably a reduction. But I would probably say completely removing the R is definitely on the faster end of things. It's not necessarily super fast speech, but it's definitely on the faster end of things. It's that would be my impression. Sales recordings. Are you a Native American? Well, I'm an American native. Native in English, Native American mean it because we say like Native German, Native Japanese, whatever. Like if you're a native of that language or that country, and technically it could mean that for American English or for an American person, but we specifically use Native American to refer to the indigenous people that were here, before the Europeans came. So it's a little confusing when you ask that. So to make that clear, we would ask, are you an American native? Right? Because you can switch it. You can say, are you a German native? Are you a native German? It doesn't matter. But in American English, or for American, there is a little bit of confusion depending on which way if you put native first, there can be a little confusion there. So we tend to use Native American for the indigenous people and American native for somebody who is either a native speaker of American English or who was born American in America. Yes, I am from the United States. I am a native speaker of American English. And there you go. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions, but carrying. So is it E? Is it E plus E? Is it E plus I? Or is it just I? Okay. Carrying. So we're focused on that after the R, right? So the E and then the E again. Okay. Well, the way I would say it, carrying. So what's going to happen? It depends on the way the person speaks. So in the way that I speak and that I think most Western Americans speak, which again, it still sounds neutral. It's just it's one of those variations that is not unneutral. I have a video on that. I don't want to keep going over that over and over. Go watch the video. But with the added ing, the way that I naturally say that is een. So it's E plus a regular N. It's not E plus ng, which is how most teachers probably teach you. And so it depends on the speaker. In my case, I would want to do the E for that Y sound, carry, right? And then I want to go an E again for that added ing. So how do I do that? Carrying. So I'm not, you can't hold a vowel. Okay. If you, unlike the consonants, right? We were talking earlier how like if you have an S and then an S, you make a slightly longer S. You can't do that with vowels. It's not going to do anything. So especially if you have like E and E, right? It could be very subtle and hard to hear, but what we do is we make some sort of slight little movement that will then make it sound kind of like a Y. And we'll basically go E, small y, back into E. So it's not like you're going E or something like that. It's very, very small, but it's not like careen. No, you can't hold the vowel. It doesn't work. So you have to just make a little movement, carrying. een, een, een. Okay, small y linking. Again, anytime you go from e, I, or ai, or oi, so if it ends in e or I, and you're going to any other vowel, even if it's the exact same vowel, you're going to link it with a small y. So that's what we would do there. Now, if somebody, so it's not just one e, so it could be e plus e with a small y between. It's not just I, that would be Karen, which would be a name Karen, Karen. That wouldn't even be carry-in with the in apostrophe. It wouldn't even be that. You need that first e there for sure. But if the person, instead of saying the added ing as een, like I do, if they say ing, which is also very neutral and natural, then it's going to be e for that y plus a small little y sound. Okay, so don't get confused by the spelling, right? Because there's a y spelling in carry, but it's an e sound. It's not a y sound. So you're going to do the e sound plus a small little y going into I, and then back into carrying, 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 carrying. Okay. Either way, there's going to be this sort of small little y, or at least the illusion of a small little y between them, because you can just open from e to I, and it'll kind of sound like there's something there as you sort of peel off. It does sound a little bit different because going e to e, you're really going to hear that little change. We're going e to I, it might sound like a smoother transition. It doesn't matter. It just depends on which way you pronounce it. But you have to have an e there first for sure. And then you can go to e or you can go to I. But remember, the een version would be en, where the ing version would be e, Okay, if you do en, then that sounds like the more informal way to say the added ing on a verb, like walking, talking, instead of walking, talking. So be careful with that. But calvi, I don't know what calvi means. But okay. Is there any difference between pocket change and loose change? Yeah. I mean, loose change doesn't have to be in a pocket. It could be on the floor. You could use them interchangeably, like, you know, oh, I have some pocket change here, oh, I have some loose change here. You could. They're not exactly the same thing, but it just kind of comes down to usage. Okay, Naji. So I'm pretty sure I answered that before you put that. I know I'm behind, but I've answered this twice, so I'm not going to answer it again. Is there supposed to be a difference between with the and with a? Which, by the way, guys, if you are in a case like Naji, where maybe I haven't got to you yet because I'm behind, I'm not saying you have to do this, but there is the super chat, right? It's going to make it stand out. And then I'll take the time to answer your question right there. Otherwise, I just go through the whole list. So, is there supposed to be a difference between with the and with a? Yes, I assume with the is pronounced as with the, and with a, little typo there, as with a normal th. The one that's taught by teachers on YouTube. I was going to say Teacherson what? Teacherson YT. Yeah, teachers on YouTube. Yes, thank you, David. You should be my moderator. But okay, so with the and with a. Okay, so remember we have the dental version, dental TD version of the TH sounds. So there's some different things that can happen here. Fully enunciated with the, or you can actually do a voice TH on with and say with the. Now that could be a little unclear. Are you saying with the or with because you can voice or unvoice the TH and with regardless. And so it kind of makes it unclear since the th in the is voiced, but we're saying and in both cases, that can make it a little unclear. So what we might do, if we're fully enunciating, we might do voiceless th to voiced th, say with the, and that'll kind of make it clear, okay, there's a voiced th there. And then with a, that's would just be straight voiceless th. Now, if we use this sort of dental variation with the, so you're going to go into the dental T, because voiceless th. I guess you could also do the dental D since it doesn't matter there, but you're going to release a dental D. That's the important thing. With the. Now, could you do that with a? Yes. Cut it with the knife. Cut it with the knife. Cut it with the knife. With the knife. Cut it with the knife. With the knife. I think we're probably going to use the dental T there for sure, because that makes it kind of stand out. If it's a dental T and not a dental D, well, then there can't be a voiced TH there, right? But because with can use the voiced or voiceless TH, you could use the dental D connecting to but then it's not clear, and it would be context, right? Is it with a or with the, and it would be context. So if I say cut it with a knife, well, I guess that could be a or the, right? But if I say, say you don't have a knife, and I say cut it with the knife, cut it with the knife, with a knife, I might be saying cut it with a knife because you don't have a knife. But if you're holding a knife, and I say, okay, now cut it with the knife, with the knife. Now it's probably going to be interpreted as with the, even though they sound exactly the same. So context is very important there. There's more than one answer. Yeah, it's very interesting. I remember when I was talking about that dental N, that is when you have to sort of shift because between the and if you say like on the, it's going to be interpreted as the, even though there's no th there or dental T or D. Where if you say on with a regular N, it's going to be interpreted as on a. But if we're just going not from the N to the or the N to we're just going from a dental T or dental D into the or it could come out sounding exactly the same, depending. In this case, because the th in with can be voiced or voiceless, it doesn't matter. If it were a different word where it has to be voiced or voiceless, then you're going to have a certain combination there. But context is important. Context is important. This is a case where the context becomes very important. And we're going to rely more on the context than the exact sounds. Yeah. So your assumption there is not quite right. I like the direction that you went with that to sort of maybe try to clarify and separate them out in the pronunciation. But there's more than one answer here, and they might end up sounding exactly the same depending on how you say them. So context is the key there. Dealio. What's the dealio? Could you explain the usage of overkill? Overkill means excessive. It's essentially what it means. It's excessive, too much of something for a particular task, right? So you might have, say, too many water bottles. You wouldn't say, oh, like, you know, I like all these water bottles are overkill. Like, as soon as you use overkill, it sounds like there's a particular purpose. So like you have too many water bottles for what you need them for. So say you only need 5 for this thing you need to do, but you have 20. Okay, so for that task, for that purpose, the amount that you have is overkill. Or we commonly use that with like an action. So you might say, okay, good example. When I was first, well, not first learning Japanese, but when I first started actually taking my first Japanese class, you know, they start teaching you the writing system, hiragana specifically. And what I did, I think that this can work very well for scripts, for like learning the written alphabet of something. Not for the kanji. The kanji is very complicated characters. in Japanese, the hiragana they're very simple characters. So the kanji is a different beast. This is just sort of the simple alphabet of Japanese, roughly speaking. And what I did for that is, and this was way before I knew really anything about language learning. What I did for that is I said, okay, I'm going to write each character 50 times. 50 times. Very effective, because even to this day, even though I very rarely use or write, like read or write in hiragana, with a couple little exceptions here and there that my memory has kind of faded because some of the characters are a little similar, I can still pretty much read hiragana. And if I need to write in hiragana, the letters pretty much still come to me after more than 10 years. So very effective. But yeah, I wrote each character 50 times. Didn't work so well for the kanji, but for the hiragana, it worked well. Now, you could say, somebody might say, you know, like, oh, maybe you only need 20 times and you still would have remembered it just as well. So maybe in your opinion, you think 20 is enough. So you're only going to write them 20 times, where I tell you I'm writing them 50 times. You're like, dude, that's overkill. You don't need to do it that many times. Okay, that would be a very good example. Could you please check the entry for bomb at Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary and listen to the pronunciation? As I said, dictionaries are not the best resources for pronunciation. You want to rely on them because they're the dictionary, but they're not the best resources for pronunciation. So Merriam-Webster specifically, let's see. Merriam-Webster. America's most trusted encyclopedia. Okay. Bomb. Oh, God. That is definitely not how to pronounce the word. Oh, God. Okay. Maybe there are some natives who say it that way. I can't speak for everybody, but what I'm hearing, it's, I don't even know if I can reproduce that. Yeah, I can't even. I'd have to shadow that a bit. Like that's how unnatural this pronunciation is to me. I'm not even sure how to make that sound, but they're saying something like bam, 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 bam. Can you pass me that lip balm? No, not in any way. Just got an email. I'll look at that later. So perfect example. Thank you very much, David, for this example. Perfect example of why you cannot trust the dictionary for pronunciation. Again, maybe there are some natives who use that pronunciation. I can't imagine it. Maybe it exists. It is Merriam-Webster. It's supposed to be American English. So I'm sure somebody says it that way, but I've never heard it that way from anybody from anywhere in the country. So yeah, interesting. And then, yeah, so further on this, they transcribed the word, the A with the whatever, the diaresis, I want to say diaresis after it, on top of it. Like the German I don't even remember how to do that in German anymore. There's like the A, O, and U with the umlaut. Like I don't even remember. Anyway, whatever, it didn't matter. This is in German. With L in parentheses. And while I don't think I've heard someone articulate it with a full L, I've definitely heard some speakers say it with a half L. Yes, so putting the L in parentheses, I think, is a nice little tactic here. I would probably do the same. For the vowel sound itself, no. But the standard, based off of my research, and based off of the way that I speak, I think the standard that most Americans use when we have like walk, talk, bomb, salmon switches to a instead of ah, almond, right? Or palm, right? These words with that A and the L, it's a silent L and it's just ah, right? If you don't have the merger, maybe you might use ah or aw, I don't know, but for me it's just one sound, ah, and the L is silent. Perhaps with the exception of certain words, but generally that seems to be the thing based off of the research I did, based off the way I speak, based off the way I hear people speak. But I am aware that there are some speakers, native speakers, who, for whatever reason, it's perfectly natural because the way natives speak is correct, right? The way natives speak is correct. It may not be correct according to the standard, but it is correct because they're native speakers. It's a variation, whether it's regional or whatever. I have heard some speakers say balm, palm, almond, salmon. Now walk and talk, that one, I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised for that one. So the ALK, maybe not, but for these other ones, yeah, there are some speakers who do that, and that's fine. But that's for the L part. I would recommend just dropping the L because, as I said, with walk and talk, it sounds kind of weird to me, but you don't, why would you make it harder for yourself? And so if you could just say ah, why would you say all and Lcolored? That's harder to do, right? So my recommendation for the L sound there would be to just drop it, unless there does happen to be a word that needs it, which I can't think of any off the top of my head. Now, be careful, because just because you say AL together doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be one of these where you can drop the L. That's the trick. It depends on the word, which is why we always want to focus on our ears. But often, if you see AL, the L will be silent, or at least it can be silent. Standard, it will be silent, and just make your life easier and drop it. So if you're not sure, again, go to forvo.com, not the dictionary. Go to forvo.com. See how many speakers use the L. Some you'll probably hear using the L, some you won't. Okay, and that's fine. And then if you hear natives using both versions, use the easier one, right? If you really aren't sure, ask a teacher, ask me, bring it to me, whatever, and we can give you maybe some more insights as natives, or ask a friend, a native speaking friend, like, oh, if I say this with an L, is that like a regional thing, or is that normal? And a native would actually be able to give you maybe more of like a full answer to that, if you really want to be 100% certain. So I know it sucks. It's English. The spelling does not match the sound, and there's regional variations and stuff. And so it is what it is. It is what it is, and you kind of have to just work your way through it. I try to give you the easy options, but it's not always easy at the end of the day, to determine, what actually will work. I think Provetar Million is translated to fully take advantage of. Yeah, more or less. Yeah, we talked about that. There was this really good question I wanted to ask, but then I just spaced it. Yeah, it's okay. I'm sure you'll think of it. But yes, thanks for helping out there, Delio. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Delio, but I want to say Delio, especially because it sounds like. Anyway, that's another thing. Instead of deal, we say Delio. What's the dealio? Just a little more informal. Instead of what's the deal. Anyway, but would it be natural to say that a guy is ditzy to mean that he's got his head in the clouds, or is it just for women? It's actually a good question. You could use it for a man, but we definitely think of it, at least in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong, but I associate that more strongly with women, which I know that could be taken out of context and completely misinterpreted. I'm not saying women are ditzy. I'm just saying that in my experience, hearing the word, it tends to be applied much more to women. And that's a common thing in languages. Sometimes we have words that we tend to use more for women, that we use more for men, some that it doesn't really matter. So, it is what it is. Ditzy. He's kind of ditzy. Yeah, you could apply it to a guy. I mean, it just feels like, if I think of like someone, like a person who's ditzy, which this is a stereotype, it's completely wrong, but this is just the image I get, like a blonde woman who, is maybe very much into, I don't know, like fashion and partying, and doesn't, not that she's stupid necessarily, but a person that you wouldn't expect to be like very like super well educated, like, or whatever. Again, not correct, not right. I know stereotypes. I'm just saying that's the image I get. That's the association I have. So there are probably other natives who have that same association with the word, and it is what it is. Not saying it's right. What would we use for guys if we didn't use ditzy? It's kind of. I think we might, because we have many phrases for this actually, to call people like kind of stupid or like not maybe not all there, kind of like head in the clouds type thing. You can say like not the sharpest tool in the shed. A little bit of a long expression there, but not the sharpest tool in the shed. That could be applied to men or women, but you could definitely apply that to men for sure. So Finn, there's no such word as aproveitar in English, unfortunately. But sometimes it can be translated to enjoy and take advantage of, but none are quite the same. Okay, interesting input from Finn. Very good. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Because in Spanish, aprovechar. I'm trying to think, because there's some connection I had with something. I don't think it's directly to English. I think it was between French and Spanish. Yeah. Aprovechar. I'm sure if I dug into the etymology, we'd probably find some sort of link to something in English. Maybe through French. Take the long way around. But yeah, I think you're right there. I can't think of a word that would directly fit that, and that's really handy in Portuguese and Spanish or in whatever language, when you have a word that sort of means this thing, because you just have the one word for it. Where in another language like English, we would have to use like a phrase to express the same idea. That's always fun between languages, because you're like, oh, I could just use this word. But then when you're learning another language, you're like, how do I say this? Oh, I have to say this long phrase. That sucks. So, David, for musket, are you more likely? See, is that how you spell musket? I'm thinking of like the gun. Today's a gun day, apparently. But no, that's not how you spell it. Is it? Ooh. Wait. Oh, okay, that's not what I was thinking of. Apparently, this is a word. How do you spell that word? Ah, yes, okay. I'm thinking of musket, which is the old gun that soldiers used to use, where you have to like reload after every fire, every shot. Okay. I've never seen this word before. So the other word that I was thinking of would be musket. Musket is stress on the first one. Looking at this, because when I first saw it, I was like, is that musket or muscat? Or sorry, muscat. No, yeah, it wouldn't be muscat. This word muscat. Yeah, so okay, so I think the stress would be on the first part for sure. That sounds right. And then cat or kit. Muscat. Well, I don't know what this word is. I've never heard this word before. I want to say cat because I see CAT, and that would differentiate it from musket, which is a different word. I don't mind saying that word multiple times because it's like a historical weapon. Nobody's going around using muskets, to do harm. So, some people do say grandeur. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'd probably say muscat. Yeah. It's kind of, it feels weird either way. Because I kind of want to reduce that, since I would stress the first part, even though it's spelled CAT. I kind of want to reduce it to kit, or say it as kit. So I really don't know. Daniela, welcome. Hello. We made it here in time. We have like a half hour left. Not even a half hour, a little less than a half hour. So you made it on time, Daniela. Very good. Good job. Gabriel emitted a message, which, by the way, since Daniela is here, I was thinking of you specifically earlier. I know that there are several Spanish speakers. I know we have a lot of Portuguese speakers. I know there are several Spanish speakers who come in and out. Daniela is one of our Spanish speakers. last time I was talking a little bit about this new thing I found with like the center of gravity around the thinking sound and the oral posture, the mouth posture, and all this stuff, which I've been playing with a lot more. I'm working with a student on how to like different techniques to try to find and adapt to that center of gravity. So far, some interesting results. So more on that later. But I've been trying to sort of tweak my Spanish mouth posture because I realized after sort of discovering this concept that now I could really hear it in Spanish. I'm just like, how do they do this? It's like I can hear when they do the and they do the and they do the o. Like I can hear that there's this different posture now, and it's like it's sort of biased towards this thinking sound in a way. Like that, at least that's how I'm perceiving it. The and so I've been trying to sort of tweak my Spanish pronunciation a little bit, where I'm sort of trying to hold this new posture. And I kind of wanted to test it with the Spanish speakers here, just so you guys can tell me if I sound like more Spanish or less Spanish, and see the results. So if anybody would like me to experiment with that and try that, and you want to judge me, let me know, and we can do a quick test of that, because it's always interesting to see what other people say. And I haven't completely adapted it yet. I've been really focusing on music and songs, and because they're like things to kind of are like drawn out a bit more, and so I have like more time to kind of try to adjust and hear what's going on. So I don't think I've completely adapted it into my speech for Spanish, but I think I'm starting to get it. And I think I'm starting to sound, that look, because I already have good Spanish pronunciation, but obviously I'm not exactly like a native. I'm like maybe close. So I think this is getting me just that little tiny bit closer, and then I might just have to fix my rhythm. I think those are the two big things I'm lacking that I wasn't aware of in the past. So I was about to tell you that you should take a course or something like that relative to digital marketing. You can be a great YouTuber. Yeah, I hate marketing, honestly. I despise marketing. I am next year, some point, I am probably going to start running some like ads for English hacks on Facebook and YouTube and stuff. I really don't like my philosophy on marketing, which I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. If you have a really, really good product, it will sell itself, right? People will find it. They will say, this is really great. They'll tell their friends about it, and it'll spread. If you have marketing, you can maybe spread it faster and farther. I would agree with that. But I do think at the end of the day, if you have a really good product, it will take care of itself. It'll spread by itself. It just may not be as fast. Where me, usually, like if I see marketing for stuff, and I guess this doesn't apply to every little thing, but usually when I see marketing for stuff, I say ads for stuff, usually it makes me less wanting to buy that thing, especially like on Amazon. I don't know, like your guys' experience on Amazon, but like they have like the promoted listings, right? If it says promoted, I don't care if it has a bunch of reviews on it. As soon as I see it says promoted, I don't want to buy that one, because I feel like somebody paid money for this to be seen, and they're doing so as a means of trying to push out an inferior product, right? Because it can't sell itself. Now, that's not always true, I know, but that's my default perception. If I see a promotion for it, I'm going to think that product is like they have to use money to get people to buy it. And I could be wrong about that, but that's just my perspective. I really hate, like, I'm not saying marketing is all bad and everything. People, who do marketing, I'm not saying, they're whatever. Just me personally, I don't like dealing with marketing, but I'm going to have to get my hands a little dirty with that at some point. I guess maybe I could take a course or something to get up on that, but I really don't want to. But I'll do what I have to do. So yeah, thanks for the suggestion though. I have no idea how to say it. Andre. I don't know. I'm probably not saying that right. I'm gonna say Andre. Welcome. Welcome. Is it possible to have a couple private sessions with you? If so, what platform do you use? italki. So yeah, I do currently work through italki. I'm not accepting students, and I, as a general rule, I try not to accept students from the English access community. Many teachers, right? They start making content as a form of getting more students. That is not my purpose here. In fact, I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to make it to where you need a teacher as little as possible. But I do currently teach. I'm not accepting new students at this moment. As I mentioned to somebody earlier, I don't know if you were already here at that point, but if you sign up for the right tier on Patreon or the YouTube membership, you can get some feedback from me for some recordings, a certain number of recordings each month, and give you some feedback on that. And you'll be, supporting the channel monetarily. And that's kind of the best I can offer at the moment. But my long-term goal is actually to stop actively teaching. So the chances of any particular person getting to work with me at some point in the future is very small, if not impossible. So not good odds there. But yeah, I'm trying to give you guys all the tools and resources and knowledge that you need to not need a teacher. Now, obviously, you do need feedback. That feedback ultimately can come from a native. It doesn't have to be from a teacher, as long as it could just come from a native. But I want to reduce the need for a teacher as much as possible. And that's like the entire purpose. Well, essentially, in a way, that's the entire purpose of my channel is to help you guys in that way for free. And of course, give you these different ways to think of things like the logic of prepositions and, untraditional exercises that aren't traditional and things like that. So anyway, right now I've been focused a lot on pronunciation, as you probably know. But I will be finishing the pronunciation course. Not going to finish it this year. I'm going to finish it in the first quarter of next year. So that I can definitely do. Some people in the country pronounce it lychee too, which is weird considering that we speak Portuguese. Oh, okay, so in my country, I guess. You forgot a word there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a little glitch in English for why people started saying it that way. Based on the fact that we don't have a phonetic spelling system. Way to Everest. Hi, bro. Hello. Welcome. Let me know if you have questions. I'm a little behind. I think I'm catching up finally. But let me know if you have any questions. Yeah. Okay, love the Japanese parallels. Wow. Okay, so that's that's where I was at that point. Interesting. Yeah, I'm way behind. That always helps. Thanks. No problem. Delia, interesting. I'm thinking language borrowing words approximately. Yeah, anglicized. Yeah, anglicization. Exactly. Okay, Joseph. Welcome. Hello, I'm from South Africa. ZA. Zambia? I don't know. Anyway, my boss says that I am Neanderthal. What does this mean? Well, that's not good. That's not very nice. Okay, so Neanderthal or Neanderthal, that's the way some people pronounce it with that TH, is actually, it wouldn't be Neanderthal, it would be Neanderthal. It's spelled with a TH, but it would be a T, or you can pronounce it as a TH, it doesn't matter. Neanderthal is back during the Ice Age, right? It was a different species of human, right? That's not our species, but they were shorter, heavier built, and they died out, and we survived. So they went extinct. We now know that Neanderthals were actually very smart, but through the 1900s, the 20th century, we had this idea that Neanderthals were very, very stupid. So if somebody calls you a Neanderthal, they are saying you are very stupid, which is not nice at all. I don't know why your boss would say that. It doesn't sound like you have a very nice boss. But that's what he's saying. He's calling you very stupid. Okay. Are you a fan of the Alien franchise films? Not really. I was wondering how you pronounce the name of the iconic towing vehicle, Nostromo. Probably Nostromo or Nostromo. The first one, I'm not sure. I'd either go R-O, but yeah. Because the characters in the movie can't seem to agree. Nostromo. Yeah, see, there's even more variations. Something between the two. Yeah, we don't know. It's not an English word. Based on the way it's spelled, there's different things that we can do based on different spelling patterns. All of them are potentially correct because it's not an actual word. That's a perfect example. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just pick one. Fernando, welcome, Fernando. Is this sentence grammatically correct? And despite Android 9 brought a bunch of interesting new features, the update was watered down by LG and its UI. There's a little problem here, at least. And despite Android 9 bringing a bunch of interesting new features. So you have to say despite ing, despite verbing, or you could do something like, and despite the fact that, now we have a second clause, a second idea, despite the fact that Android 9 brought, okay, because now it's a separate idea, but you can't do despite brought, despite something brought, it doesn't work. Yeah. Everything else sounds fine. And despite Android 9 bringing a bunch of interesting new features, the update was watered down by LG and its UI. Yeah. LG is the company, UI means user interface. Yeah. It's fine. Joseph, I answered your question. Sorry, it took me a second to get to that. David, say it louder for the people in the back. Marketing shade. Marketing shade. Yeah, I don't like marketing. I can help you. Perhaps, Danielle, perhaps. I guess you know about marketing. That would be implied. I don't think you were here earlier when I was talking about this, Daniela. I am currently looking to hire an assistant for English Hacks. And I detailed, I don't know where it is in the live stream at this point, but I detailed the 3 main tasks and stuff. Marketing was not part of it, although if somebody could, handle the marketing, like obviously I would probably demand more pay because it's a little more technical and specific. So I don't know if I would be able to afford that, but having an assistant take care of that for me would be fantastic. So I don't know, maybe at some point in the future that can happen. In the short term, I'm probably going to have to do it myself. So yeah, I mean, I can maybe, ask you for some pointers or something, or whatever. Joseph, okay, thank you. Either thanks or thank you. Thanks would be the short version. My boss called me stupid. I will do something bad to him today. Well, yeah, don't do anything illegal. Definitely don't do anything illegal. Yeah. This live stream just took a left turn into some interesting territory. I mean, whatever you're going to do, I don't know. I'm not a part of this. Just, don't kill anybody. That's all I have to say. Okay, I caught up. Yay. And we have about 10 minutes left. You guys are really good with keeping this within the time frame, I think. Fantastic. Any more questions? I mean, we still have time. Anybody else has some other questions or... Oh, yeah, I mentioned earlier the Spanish. I don't know if any Spanish speakers are here that want to judge my attempt to shift my oral posture. I could talk a little bit about, so as I, right, because I think I mentioned this before, just because my theory is right doesn't necessarily mean that it's useful. Right, so I might be right, but can you use it to improve your English? So I'll just say really quick, I'm also trying to start to develop techniques around it. And one technique that I'm playing with one of my students is, where, like, just to really feel the subtle tension on your tongue, and how to like shift it around and stuff, would just be like just a general exercise where, say, like, you try to keep your tongue more or less flat, but you sort of try to, like, okay, you put the pressure here, and you're not trying to say a particular sound, right? So it would probably be like more or less, right? But you're like and it'd be kind of weird and awkward at first, and then you can like go into the E position, but then like try to hold that position and shift the tension, like E, right? And so, like, holding one position, but moving that tension along your tongue, and just like using that to build up more mouth awareness. I think that regardless if it's for my particular theory or just a general pronunciation technique, I think that could be very, very useful. So if any of you want to play with that and let me know, if it seems to help you in any way, that would be useful for me as well. But okay, Delia, he was borderline aggressive towards me. He was bordering on aggressive towards me. Which one, if any, doesn't work? Both are perfectly fine. Two ways to say the same thing. Borderline something is like not quite there, but just like almost there. Like you're right on that line. It's not aggressive, but it's just about aggressive. It's like maybe it might as well be aggressive, but not quite there. And bordering on something, same thing, right? So it's just two ways to say the same thing. Gabriel, do bosses in the United States follow their employers on social media? I have no idea. From what I've heard, some do. I think people have gotten fired for things that they post on social media. I don't really know how wide of a practice that is or whatever. Personally, like, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's also kind of like an invasion of privacy, I think. Like, your employer doesn't own you. But then again, you are posting it publicly. So if you have like your Facebook private to where they can't see it, then okay. But if you have a public Facebook, you're kind of putting it out there. And so, I mean, that technically is on you. You're leaving it open. So I don't know. It's kind of a gray area. I don't think employers should really do that, but whatever. Message retracted. I use that word, I don't know, like once a year, basically. What, borderline? Maybe? I don't know. Imagine the newspaper headline: YouTube English teacher incites violence against rude employers. I know, right? Yeah, there we go. That, yeah, not intended. Not intended. And somebody's just gonna like cut out the clip and like make it, take me out of context. And all of a sudden, I'm at the center of a controversy that was never even intended. I'm surprised that hasn't happened to me yet. Like, that seems like something that would happen to me. Yeah. I don't have enough enemies yet, apparently. Try using a lazy app for the first sound of the diphthong in the word sound. What does that sound like to you? Okay, so using lazy instead of ow, or okay, for the first, I should read the thing for the first sound. So not for the whole diphthong. Okay. So instead of wait, hold on. Ow, ow. Okay, sound. That would be very, very clearly articulated. And then bad, sound, sound, Yeah, that works. Interesting insight there. I think because the start of the diphthong I already sounds very anyway. If we're sort of using necessarily, but if we're saying it very lazily, I guess it can kind of end up just using the same position as the lazy because we're just not opening as much. It's kind of in that front area. And yeah. Oh, the word hence. Oh, did I use the word hence? Sometimes I do. That's what I meant. Yeah. Good question. See, that's a little thing that like I totally wasn't even conscious of, but yeah, good question. So hence is a common word, or it's in disuse. I remember you using it once. I don't see it many times unless in writing. Yeah, and I actually might use it wrong sometimes. It's an old word. I know it was used a lot in Shakespeare's time. It sounds kind of fancy these days. You know, it's kind of like ergo in a way. It's like, yeah, it's used. It's not necessarily, like a super fancy word, but it's not the most common word. It sounds a little educated, a little fancy in a way. So I wouldn't say it's in disuse. It's definitely not a common word. I think most people probably don't use it. It's more like, again, like an idiolectical thing. Some people will use it, some people won't. And yes, it would be more common in writing for sure, especially really formal writing. So yeah, it's a word. Held for review. Okay. Not necessarily offensive. I'm going to go ahead. So the YouTube filter caught this one, Joseph. I am going to go ahead and hide that. I mean, I guess that's not the worst thing you could do. But yeah, I don't recommend doing anything like that. I mean, people call you stupid. It's like, yeah, oh, well, yeah, it's like, whatever, who cares? I don't really believe in an eye for an eye, right? At least not if it involves violence. So, yeah. The like sound I mentioned to you some time ago in the diphthong. Wait, what? Yeah, I vaguely remember you asking something kind of similar to that before. So wait, we're talking about sound. Yeah, sound. Sound. Yeah. So yeah, the like sound. So yeah, it and probably what I told you is it's not because if I do like sound, like that sounds like maybe like Southern or something. That's probably what I said before. I don't remember specifically. I have a vague memory of that. So yeah, if we switch that from to the lazy it does seem to fit. Yes. So there you go. If you were to glide from to lazy back and forth, would there be an audible difference between the two? Excellent question. I don't think I've ever tried that. Let's find out. Okay. Let's see if I can do this right the first time. All I'm really doing is I'm like, the tip of my tongue is like right here. It doesn't have to be touching the teeth, but the way I'm doing it right now, it's touching the teeth. When I do it's like this. When I do I just do this. The lazy that's all I'm doing. Because it keeps that basic little shape of and that creates the difference. So that's excellent, David. I gotta hold on. I already have a note more or less along that, but I need to add that to the notes for the vowel masterclass. And actually, I think I might add that to the lazy lesson also. It's a really good point. Let's see here. I'll put it here. Slide between lazy at and to demonstrate. Okay. And it's a subtle little thing, but I think even if, like, under normal circumstances, somebody like has a little difficulty hearing the difference between and the lazy I think in that, me holding it and sliding it, I think most people should be able to hear at least a little difference. If not, I mean, it is what it is. We know how the ears work in languages. Sometimes you have to really train them. But I think most people should be able to hear a little difference if I hold it like that. So that's a good little piece there. Okay, now we are at 2:00, which means this is my end time. I see Allison Silva just got here. So this is the cutoff. Okay, I will go ahead and answer what is left here. No more comments. Okay, no more questions. I got to wrap this up. So I appreciate the cooperation. It's funny because we stopped at like 1:49, and then it's just like bam, everything else. So okay, let's finish up here. Is there a more common form to say? Okay, so a common way to say that someone is a paragon of something. I mean, paragon. Let me double check the meaning of that. Nope, that's not what I typed. Oh, that's because of my mouse. Stupid Merriam-Webster. Okay, paragon. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I just wanted to double check and see if it had other definitions. Oh, apparently paragon can also be used as a verb. I've never heard it be used as a verb. Okay, yeah. So the question: is there a more common way to say paragon? Yeah. So I mean, it's a perfectly fine phrase, but if you say like a perfect example of something, it may not always be. So this is a model of excellence or perfection. So let's see, a paragon of a wife, paragon of goodness, perfect example. Yeah, it's kind of hard to because paragon, it has a certain feeling, a certain impact. Like it's a very strong word. So I'm trying to think of like, okay, well, if I try to replace it with something else, it's like, does it fit the same? Like maybe it means it kind of points to the same meaning, but it's like it doesn't. It's kind of missing something. I kind of want to say like a perfect example of something. Maybe could be an equivalent phrase there. There's probably other things we can say, but off the top of my head, that's it. Okay. Can you do a lazy in the diphthong even if the diphthong is not affected by a nasal consonant after it? A word like cow instead of sound. Okay, good question. Yeah, because we tend to use that lazy before the N and M anyway. I mean, you can still use the full but it's extra common there. So say cow, cow, cow. Bad, 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 bed, bad, 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 cow, cat, bad, bad, cow, bad, cat, cow, 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 bad, cow. I feel like there's something a little bit different somewhere, maybe with my jaw or with some. It's really subtle, but essentially, yes. I mean, if I try to go into that lazy it seems to work. There might be something a little bit different going on somewhere, but essentially, yes, I would say you could use it there as well. Yeah, it's not a problem. That's my initial impression. Allison, since the beginning of the pandemic, I started to study English listening to news radios in the United States, as well as watching videos of you and others. Good, very nice. Is there an anchor from any radio that indicates by speaking more formally and correct? Or is this bullshit of mine? I mean, worrying about learning the formal mode of speech because here in Brazil, many write, but very few speak grammatically correctly all the time. Okay. I don't think I have time to answer this. The short version. Okay. If you're focusing on spoken English, I strongly recommend that you do not try to learn that from the news. because what's going to happen is you're going to sound like a news anchor. News anchors tend to speak in a certain way. The passive voice, for example, is much more common in the news than in actual real speech. So you're going to sound unnatural. In addition to that, if you're learning American English, okay, if you're learning British English, it's maybe different. I don't know. I'm not an expert in British English. If you're learning American English as a whole, regardless of the situation, is much more relatively informal than other languages, especially, but also than other dialects, like especially compared to like proper British English. American English is a lot more informal overall. And as I discussed before, I think the best way to look at American English isn't in terms of like formal and informal. It's more, there's standard politeness, informal, and then like super informal. And then for certain things, usually just in writing, but certain expressions or certain words will sound very formal. And we tend to operate between the standard and informal. And that's where Americans spend most of their time. We very rarely are up here in this like actual formal level. Like even if I were talking to the Queen of England, I would not be saying like, oh, if it would please Her Majesty to attend this royal event. You know, like, no, I wouldn't say that. I'd be like, I wouldn't be like, yo, Queen, come to this event. No, like that's way too informal. You know, but let's say, you know, if I knew the Queen, and you know, this is probably preposterous to a British speaker if they were listening to me right now. They're like, what do you mean talking to the Queen? How dare you? But no, like if the Queen of England were there and I needed to, you know, ask her whatever, I'd be like, would you like to come to this event? You know, like that's just standard politeness. It's not formal. Like it's just normal. Where making that a little more informal would be like, do you want to come to this event? It's a little more informal. So it still sounds perfectly fine. It's just technically a little more informal. It doesn't sound as polite. And then if I got really informal, as I said, I'd be like, yo, Queenie, like, let's go to the event. Like, that's super informal. So I think the way you're approaching it is completely off base. Like, do not learn spoken English from the news because you will not sound natural. I can guarantee you will not sound natural. I very strongly recommend not doing that. What you want to focus on instead is conversational English, like interviews. Okay, not like super like, oh, I'm on the news and I'm interviewing this person. No, like on talk shows, right? Listen to talk shows, listen to interviews on talk shows, listen to actual people speaking naturally, not in some, you know, proper situation where I'm reading the news to you and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to sound natural. And don't be so concerned with speaking correctly, because yes, there are things where you can break grammar and it makes it sound more informal or just makes it sound wrong. But there's quite a bit of technically accurate grammar that natives never follow. And if you follow it, you're going to sound unnatural, right? Because it's grammar that is sort of disappearing. So like technically you're never supposed to put a preposition at the end of the sentence. That's an actual formal grammar rule. You're not supposed to do that. And yet the only people who follow that rule are what I would call the grammar police, who, to put it nicely, have a stick up their butt and really try to control the language. Like, oh, they try to correct natives and say like, oh, you don't know how to speak, even though you're a native speaker. I don't have that attitude at all. Even English teachers, go watch other English teachers. You're going to hear them putting prepositions at the end of a sentence. Okay. Now, what your teacher in your country will teach you is all of the formally correct grammar rules, including not putting prepositions at the end. I can't tell you how many students I've had where I had to retrain them to put prepositions at the end so that they sound more natural, right? Or using whom. Almost nobody uses whom. Okay, if you use it, it's okay, it's not wrong, but almost nobody uses it. Okay, so instead of for or like from whom, I think that would be grammatically correct, right? See, I'm not even off the top of my head. It's like, is that grammatically correct? To whom, right? To whom am I speaking? No. Who am I speaking to? That is real, natural American English. It is not wrong. It is normal, real American English speech. I don't care what the grammar book says. That's how most people speak. 99% of Americans will speak that way. I think a lot of British people also speak that way too at this point. So focus on real sources of real English. I can't emphasize that enough. Please, please, please focus on real sources of real English. And I understand your fear. You don't want to learn this sort of like really super informal speaking. And I know I'm way over time and all this, but this is really important. This bugs me. You hit one of my pet peeves. You struck a nerve. I understand that you don't want to, catch all this like super informal, language and stuff. So there's certain sources that you might want to avoid, like listening to, say, like if you like hip hop or rap, there's nothing wrong with that. But the type of language that tends to be used in that type of music and by speakers who make that type of music, again, nothing wrong with it, will tend to be the more informal sounding or incorrect sounding speech according to the standard. So most people that you listen to speaking normally is what you want to imitate and how you want to speak. And if you're not sure if something is like, is this correct, or does this sound really informal or really slangy or whatever, ask somebody, bring it to me, ask another native speaker, whatever you got to do. This is part of the process. Okay. If you want to sound natural, that's what you have to do. Okay, let's try to finish this up really quick. Yeah, that lazy eye lesson will change my life and solve my problems. I just know it. Well, I doubt that. That is going to be the next lesson, which I need to really get on. It should be posted hopefully tomorrow. I really want to get it done tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. You're welcome, blah, blah, blah. Allison, true, where do you listen? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Would you hire a minor for assistant? Good question, Finn. No, I will not hire anybody under the age of 18 just because I'm sure there's legal implications with that. And I don't want to touch any of that. So no, no minor, nobody under the age of 18. Oh my God, and the one already installed in the phone, only catch local channels. When are you going to drop the video about the jobs you said before, assistant editor? Yeah, so it's probably gonna be a little short video, just like an announcement. I'll also make a community post about it. I want to sort of like formalize. I have a lot of the details, which I was explaining earlier, but I kind of want to like really formalize everything and have like a really good solid idea and like actually like draft up a document that I could just give to somebody and say, this is what you do. I'll walk you through it the first time, but this is your reference. I want to have everything a little more concrete before I actually hire somebody, but I'll probably put that out within the next week or so. And then the hiring, I won't be able to start, like, I won't be able to hire someone probably until like next month, hopefully next month, because I got some financial juggling to do. But soon, within like the next month, maybe 2 months at the most, I'm looking to bring someone on. So just stay tuned, watch out for it if you're interested, and then send me a send me a message to my email. I'll sort of make a list of you guys that have contacted me, and then we'll go through the process of figuring out who's gonna get the job. I'll probably interview you guys or whatever. But yeah, okay. Soft White Underbelly. It's a channel here on YouTube about interviews, just in case you like it. Okay, interesting. I would want to check that out personally, just to like give my recommendation on it. But yeah, I mean that might be a good resource. Thank you, Daniela. Very good. Okay, so and Finn, I think that's a sad face because I guess you were under the age of 18. Sorry. I'm sure you understand, right? I don't want to. I want to keep things as simple as possible for myself. Plus, if I'm, dealing with, it's already bad enough that I'm dealing with international things. I don't know what all the details for, like, if I have any legal compliance that I have to do, and then somebody's under the age of 18 in a specific country, like, it just, if nothing else, it gives me more headache of trying to make sure that, everything is, we would say, above board. Everything is good to go and okay. So I don't want that extra complication. But I was actually thinking of you, Finn. I was thinking of you and David. You were the first two that came to my mind when I was thinking of like if I were to get somebody from the channel who like regularly comes to the lives and stuff, who I know have like a pretty solid level, you were the first two that popped up into my head. So yeah, I would like to consider you, but if you're under 18, sorry. I hope David's over 18. I'm pretty sure David's over 18, maybe. I don't know. But yes, thank you guys very much. We went 15 minutes over, but we tied this up. I will be here again next week. The lazy add lesson, you're welcome. The lazy add lesson will hopefully be posted tomorrow. If not, I'm trying to get it out to you guys. I'm trying to finish that up. Lots of big things coming, as I said. It's just, life is crazy. But Christmas is coming up, so I will see you guys next week, and then before Christmas. But have a great holiday season time until I see you again, and yeah, have fun. Bye.